Alright, Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night. And it felt like a really long episode, but it was kind of unique in its own right. There wasn't much talking throughout the entire episode, not much dialogue. It was pretty much just the battle itself, and it was played pretty straightforward. There were some pretty good visual style to the directing, but there was also some very sloppiness. With the darker setting, this taking place at night, and so many different characters and so many different undead on the battlefield, the jump cutting got a bit sloppy, and it made things a little stressful, a little hard to follow. I was concerned I might miss some major character death, or at least some big character deaths. But I think the total death toll ended up being Beric, Ed, I believe her name's Lyanna. Lyanna? I can't remember her name exactly. And ultimately, one of my favorite characters, Jorah. And I was a little bit surprised by these deaths. Also, I kind of expected a lot more deaths and some major character deaths. But the reason I was surprised by some of these deaths, well, for one, Ed survived the whole Night Watch thing, and he just barely got here, it felt like. And as for Beric, it felt like there was going to be a bigger revelation to why he continued to survive the things he did. But there wasn't. It was a pretty poor payoff to that right there, and that really disappointed me. But with the others, Lyanna, I think she got an excellent death, and as for Jorah, he got a pretty epic death. I mean, that man. Oh well, how could I forget Theon Greyjoy? He went out in a spectacular, epic way, almost a one-man army himself. He really redeemed himself from all the things that he really did and really screwed up. And I found that kind of a beautiful, touching death, but it's also a shame that he won't get to reunite with his sister on the Iron Islands. But and the Night King ultimately died, which really, really caught me off guard because we're only 3 episodes in. I know there's only like 3 more episodes to go, but with all this Game of Thrones, everybody battling over the throne and stuff, and the importance that the Night King is something much more significant, and why all these people are at each other's throats, slaughtering each other, stabbing each other in the back this whole time, and making everything about this throne. I really felt like that the Night King was the ultimate villain, because he wasn't concerned about the throne, and Jon Snow spent so much time trying to convince people that this is more important. This is more important. This is bigger than all of us. So this is really, really a letdown, along with who kills him. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Arya Stark. I really liked everything she had up in this episode up until killing the Night King. That was a big shocker. That was a big surprise. And it's also a bit of a head scratcher from where she comes from. She isn't an exceptionally skilled assassin. She has trained. She has earned her way here. But this kill should have really went to Jon Snow. I believe that there was a lot of mention in previous seasons. It's, I'm rusty on the memory of some of this stuff, but I really do believe that there was all kinds of build up and everything to Jon Snow being the one that was going to take this guy down. Unfortunately, that's not the case. They really caught me off guard. As for Bran, I was a little bit confused about what he was what he was ultimately doing. Was this just to play defenseless and wait for the Night King to come to him? Or, where was he at in the with what do they call it? Warging. I'm curious. I know he went into the Three-Eyed Ravens and sought out the Night King to get a visual on him on the battlefield, but he was gone for a pretty long time, and there was really no explanation to what he was actually doing. And I'm curious now. Now is where does this leave Bran? What purpose does he serve now that the Night King has been dealt with? But there were some pretty intense moments in here. The battle was actually pretty great, and at times it felt a little bit like a horror movie. And with the corpses rising down in the crypt below, the tombs below, I was partially expecting to see some dead Starks come to life and some really distraught reactions to be confronted by the undead family members. But I do feel like that the Arya killing the Night King, there was I do feel like that was somewhat of a payoff to, of course, the things with the Red Witch, but also to something Tyrion had said in that episode. But I really do feel like this was Jon's battle to win. This was his victory, his thing, and I felt like, later it should maybe be Arya, since she's an assassin, the one who ultimately kills Cersei. But now I feel like Jon doesn't have much purpose except to become king, the one thing he doesn't really want, but everything's gearing up towards that. And I kind of expected more with what he told Daenerys in the last episode, with that he's part of that bloodline and he's kind of the rightful king. I thought there would be some kind of payoff or build up to that in this episode, some kind of conflict between them two based off that, but there wasn't, and that was kind of unfortunate. Like I said, this was really just played straightforward, played through straight up battle. There were tons of deaths, but not major character deaths, not even B character deaths, but there were some pretty big deaths, and I still don't know if I missed some deaths. There could be a bigger death toll than I realize. I won't really know until the next episode, unless somebody could reveal more in the comments down below. I do feel like the stuff between the dragons was pretty cool, and we finally got to see something like that. I was really curious to how this was going to go with the Night King having his own dragon. But for the most part, I just feel like a lot of the directing in this episode, with it being night, the jump cutting back and forth, all the characters on the battlefield, and all the characters to cut to give time to, and with I don't know that dragon's name, but the Night King's dragon, with him clouding everything with his frost breath or whatever you want to call it, it made things visually frustrating oftentimes throughout this episode. So I didn't really like the directing, and I didn't like that Arya was the one who to kill the Night King. I really wanted it to be Jon Snow, but I do feel like everybody had some great moments in this episode. I feel like Arya had the best of the moments. That one where she was having to sneak around all the undead, that was a pretty intense moment. Ultimately, I do like this episode, not as much as I would, and it really makes me scratch my head as to where the rest of the season's gonna go, and it really is disappointing that Cersei is the ultimate villain in this story. That's very unfortunate to me, because the way things were playing out, it seemed the other way around. Like the whole time everybody was fighting, there was this buildup, this thing coming from beyond that nobody expected, and it was bigger than everything. And now it's over, and there's still 3 episodes to go. So we'll see what happens. Comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Did it disappoint you? Were you okay with it? The way how everything played out? Like, subscribe, comment. I give it a 7 out of 10. Stay awesome, rock on.